Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to Joseph and Jeff for putting this together. I was thrilled to attend last year. I was very, very happy to be part of WMC. And when he asked me to speak, it was like a year ago. And he was like, do you want to speak? I was like, yes. And he's like, what would you talk about? And I was like, I don't know. It's like a year out, man. What are you? I don't even know. And I replied back with I would tell stories. And I think that I did right on this one. So I'm going to tell the story. A lot of people know me for my publishing efforts, but a lot more people probably know me for my freelancing work and how I run my own independent consultancy. So I'm going to talk about literally everything that happened to me regarding my consultancy business between January 27th, 2012 and June 3rd, 2013, including the parts that are too uncomfortably personal to responsibly share at a professional conference. Starting from the beginning. January 27, 2012. This was the day I quit my full-time job. And I used to work at a really large agency, and I was wrapping up a project. I was really happy about it. And they told me that for my next project, I would have to work 4 days a week in Boston. And as mentioned, I live in Chicago. That is a picture of Chicago. So I would have to travel to Boston. And I was just funding distance at the time. I would have to do press checks. I'd have to be present for a lot of things. And like logistically, I didn't want that to happen. And personally, I didn't want that to happen. I love being with my friends and building a really good community in the city. And so I quit. And it was a really, really difficult decision. And then I realized, like, what now? And so I looked around and kind of slowly dawned on me that Chicago didn't really have a job that I particularly wanted. The UX industry was dominated by the advertising industry, and that was not terribly interesting to me. Or places weren't hiring, or they were too small, or people were too insane, or they didn't provide enough respect for the position, or it was going to work me 80 hours a week. And at that point, I felt like I had two options, either move away or make up the job that I wanted. We've been talking a lot about the quitting of your full-time job as like an end game and like an ideal state. As we saw with These Are Things, of course, that's not like the most perfect roses, lovely time, but we have the privilege to actually be picky about what we do. And we can either specialize in a job and take a specific job that we want. If things go south at our job, we can quit and do something else. Because there's, frankly, too many jobs and too few designers. We don't have enough people to manage the workload, and that allows us to have the upper hand in negotiating what we want to be doing. I'm also aware that even though I have my own job and I have my own business, it has its set of trade-offs. Working for yourself can be really liberating, but it can also be super lonely. It's very stressful to not know where your next paycheck is coming from, and every client project has a finite duration, after which point they don't pay you anymore, and that's a little frustrating. There's a lot of risk in going it alone, a lot of financial risk, and I know that I can do this partly because I live in a city with a really low cost of living. I don't have a car, I don't have a mortgage, and I'm not having kids. And a lot of people quit independent work and take on a W-2 job because they want that kind of stability, and they want to have kids. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the past year is that people try to, in an ideal situation, you should try and figure out the lifestyle that you want to be living, and the life that you want to be living, and what makes you happy, and then back a job out of that. And if that involves working at a giant mega corporation and you're happy, that's fine. That is not bad, necessarily. People tend to view it as not an ideal situation. So, you know, running your own business as well is very difficult, and it is supposed to be difficult. Otherwise, everybody would just run their own businesses for a living. We saw that show of hands earlier today where probably about 1/10 of the people run a business, but like 2/5 of the people wanted to run their own business. And they have to have good reasons to run their own business. They have to have enough financial padding and enough stability to actually go and pull that off. 2 weeks after I quit my job, I point blank asked an agency for a contract gig on Twitter, which was probably, in hindsight, like the stupidest networking move that I've ever done. And I managed to get it and work there for 3 months. And that was my last day there. It resulted in really nice, stable work. It also served to probably make me really complacent about how terrifying it is to normally get a job. That was a complete outlier. That should not have happened. The lesson out of this is ask people for things. Nobody's going to know what you want if you don't ask them for it. And If you are too shy or too afraid to do it, it will be significantly more difficult for you to make a name for yourself, for you to really establish yourself, and frankly, for you to get what you want. I'm lucky I didn't blow the chance on this, but by this point, I should have done 3 things. I should have hired a lawyer, I should have hired an accountant, and I should have set up an S corporation for tax purposes. And I did none of those until November. You saw these are things tax bill, right? Mine was $5,821 in just self-employment taxes that I didn't need to pay, to say nothing of the rest of my tax bill. To say nothing of all the leads I lost because I didn't have a lawyer to vet everything. So I can't understate how important it is to get these people the instant you start an independent business, preferably a little bit before that so they can help you set it up. Here's how to do that. You should treat your lawyer and your accountant as if they are the first 2 employees of your business. So you should interview these people in person, if you can, over Skype if they're remote. They should be pretty clear about billing terms. They should turn your emails around really quickly. Good creative lawyers should be able to create and vet contracts pretty quickly. They should understand IP law really well for your work. Lawyers will often want a retainer, so basically they want money that says, okay, you definitely want to work with me and you're hiring me for legal help. Mine was $1,500. The initial amount varies generally based on the fanciness of the lawyer, and they take that and put it in a trust account so that they can draw down on it based on how much legal work they're doing. So if you get an NDA overnight and you need it vetted so that you can get feedback back to them on a project that needs to start next week, they already have your money. They can do that, and you don't have to parse that as a $300 expense. Good accountants should be part of the 21st century in general. They should have a relatively paperless workflow. They should have pretty modern software. They should not be doing everything in an Excel spreadsheet. From an expertise standpoint, they should know how issues get resolved if and when they ever appear, and what their availability looks like, what timeline you expect when you're filing, when you're going to be doing coaching for the next year, and when people are going to be estimating taxes for you so you know how much to squirrel away. Anyway, I didn't do that. You should do that. Back to the grind. I did it eventually. On this day, I wrapped up a few small projects at once, and new work was coming in at a solid clip, but it was pretty slow. There was very, very little in my life to complain about. But there was kind of this looming cloud, which is that I had no financial padding, really. I had like a month and a half. And again, I live in a city with a low cost of living. That was not very much money. Throughout this, I wondered how people would find me and decide to reach out, because I thought if I got more clients and just glommed on to a crap ton of clients, that it would actually serve me well. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to get referrals. You build a reputation from your online presence, your previous clients, any side projects that you happen to put together. And referrals are the most important way that any independent consultant's able to get work. I have 2 goals with my business: to do great design and to make it so that if anybody is looking for top-level interaction design help, the first person that they think of is me. And I can't do the former without the latter, and I can't do the latter without getting referrals. So here are 3 things that you can do today to get more of those. If you have previous clients, you should write case studies about them and put those on the internet somewhere. Talk about the work that you performed for them, solicit quotes about how great of a person you were, and share any numbers on the impact that you had. The latter is really important because people hire you not just to do Photoshop and not just to sit in a text editor every day, even though you might like doing those things. They hire you because you provide some modicum of value to the business. And if you can point to a launch and say, I doubled the client's sales because of this, you can look at the graph and it goes, merp. Well, that is a very, very forceful case study, right? You will be far more likely to get referrals in the future. No matter whether, the second thing, no matter whether you have clients already, no matter if people are even listening to you, you should teach the world everything that you know. I wrote a book about interaction design largely before I had even taken on an interaction design gig. I had taken on like 2 at that point, and started researching it when I was working as a front-end developer. And if you have something that interests you, that resonates with the kind of work that you want to be doing, you should be doing that too. I write a weekly newsletter that just riffs on whatever I'm thinking about, and I've almost not publicized it at all. I think this is the most amount of people that have ever heard me publicize my newsletter. I put a little box on the front page of my website, and 350 people actually listen to all the dumb stuff that I spew every day. And that helps me become a better writer. It helps me practice at what I do. If you're not a great writer, that is a very good way to practice. If you're a better speaker than a writer, get in front of a crowd and speak more often. Go to small meetups. They're like 15-person meetups in every city where they'll listen to what you have to say. And that helps you build your reputation. Third, you all don't have to worry about this. I think this is getting recorded for the internet. If it is, get out of the house. Follow what's going on in your town. Go to those meetups. If you're shy or introverted like myself, you will need to build up the skills necessary to meaningfully engage with people, and you will probably always need to do things that don't come naturally to you, like accept an invitation to weapons of mass creation and actually get in front and speak in front of everybody. So it's something that you have to constantly work on, right? So over the summer, I was able to feed myself pretty effectively, as I mentioned. Client work was going pretty well. And then I had one client that did not go so well. And I should not have taken them on in the way that I did. And it blew up in my face the day before I went to a conference that I was really, really looking forward to. And that served to do two things. I felt super, super miserable during the entire conference and had to put on airs that I was actually enjoying myself. And I needed my fiance to forward me rent money that month. That is, by all logic, a serious problem for the business, right? You've essentially failed. You've gone bankrupt. You are negative cash flow at that point. So this teaches you not necessarily watch your finances better, although that's a big part of it, but be a little pickier about the clients that you take on, because this wouldn't have happened if I hadn't taken on that bad client. If I had taken somebody else that had a slightly less paying gig and they actually looked like a better person to work with and were nicer to me, right? You should get a lot of referrals, but you should convert very, very few of those referrals into actual paying clients. Being picky can only help you, and having too much prospective work is a very good problem to have. I should be clear, a lot of people in this room also don't like client work very much. I love my clients. I love who I work with every single day, partly because I'm really, really picky about it, and because I have a very strict process of how I vet them. And that only allows me to take on people that I love doing work that I find to be really interesting. So when a new lead comes in, you want to immediately qualify it. You want to figure out answers to a bunch of questions. What's their budget? Not necessarily just for you, but for the entire project, and then figure out how you fit into that. Who proves the work? Who critiques the work? Is it like a giant committee of people? Who is the project's internal champion? There had to have been somebody inside the organization that was like, I want Nick D, and I want you to reach out to him, or I think it might be a good idea. How is their business structured? How much internal politics is there? Are they insane? Are they emailing you at 4 in the morning? How frequently are they going to pay you? What are the terms of that? Is it net 30, net 60? What is that going to look like? Do they have an NDA that they want you to sign, and when do they want you to sign it? What does their contract look like? Do you furnish the contract? Do they furnish the contract? These are a lot of small questions, but you want answers to all of them immediately. So I try and get somebody on the phone and I'm interviewing them at that point. I'm peppering them with questions and trying to figure out exactly how that all works out. So October was really rough, and I thought maybe this freelancing stuff isn't actually going to work out very well for me. It might be time to fold up if I can't actually make rent. But then I got the email that began a really awesome project for me, and I ended up redoing the IA and wireframes for a really big local publication. And this was the point where my business started to turn around a little bit, and I became really booked solid with work. So while this was all happening, I was just fretting a great deal and didn't really know what to do. But this referral, like every other referral I get, just appeared like magic out of nowhere. You don't really know where these emails came from. You heard these are things about one email that they got from Skordstrom's, right? They got, and that just came out of nowhere for them. They might have heard about it. You have to have faith in getting all of these things. And I also know that when I'm even going to a conference like today, or I'm going out to speak, or somebody blogs about something that I did, that happens in 2013, that might end up resulting in a referral that I get in 2015. Because they remember me, and they think about me, and they actually think about the ramifications of working with me, and they go back and look at what I'm doing, and they see, oh, he's still actually an independent designer, might be able to help out. That project served to be a really big wake-up call for the way that I run my business and what I can do to stand up for myself better. I probably rolled over on too many things in the past. This was what caused me to get the lawyer and accountant, and that was a big wake-up call. And, but I also spent a lot of time analyzing the successes and failures of different agencies around the city, online, And I figured out a lot of different ways to get more and better clients and actually sustain myself more effectively. A week later, I visited a meetup and I talked about distance, my design quarterly, and it was like, I answered a couple questions. I had a Square reader. I think I sold like 2 copies. But then within the next week, 3 people emailed me with design engagements. And it was because they had seen me at this meetup to talk about something mostly unrelated to actually conducting interaction design work. So I was on stage for 5 minutes, and if all of those deals had closed, it could have made my business $100,000. If we're calculating that out to an hourly rate, that would be about $1,200,000 per hour. I think that is the highest hourly rate I have ever seen in the history of independent consulting. So get out of the house, right? A week later was my 69-month anniversary with my girlfriend. I took her out to dinner and proposed to her. And it's worth noting that she's put up with all of my insanity for the past year and change, and this is like the first big talk of mine that she's ever seen. And she's here today, she's waving in the back. Yeah, everyone turn around, give her a big hand. She's the biggest BS filter I have in the world. She's vetted so many client emails you wouldn't even believe. I think she wrote one. So that was a happy point. This is a lot less happy point. I ended up with a lot of small bits of work in November, and things were starting to get back on track. I had that one gig with the publication. I wrapped it up on the 3rd, the day before this, and I was on the way to a final presentation to one of the other 2 clients, and I got a phone call from my mom that one of my really close family members had suddenly and unexpectedly passed away in their sleep. And I am the kind of person who like snaps into crisis mode when this sort of thing happens and is like, okay, you go here, you do this, and call me in 15 minutes. Okay, thanks. And then I wrap that up. We got everything sorted on the family side, like logistically. And then I went to that client meeting and did the client call, which was in hindsight probably a terrible idea. And then I took them aside, told them what was going on, essentially fired them, called the other client, fired them, and I thought that was it. I thought that was the end of my design business, and this was December 4th, so nobody's hiring for new work. You're going to the holiday season. I'm barely standing on shaky ground with my finances because, again, got forwarded rent 2 months before this. And I thought that was going to be it. But the teachable moment out of this, while it has been doing kind of a number on my personal life as of late, I've learned that my family and my personal life should come first, and even if I run a business, that business should come second. And not only that, but the clients that I fired were just immensely understanding about it. They weren't angry, they weren't retributive, they were very understanding about what all went on. And that was because I was picky in hiring good clients, because I could have just as easily hired clients that would have run me through the ringer, that could have exercised a lot of things in the contract that would have been very, very bad for me, and none of them did. And they all had the faith to take it on and understand what I was doing. Because my life is increasingly a dark comedy, I threw the holiday party for all of my closest friends on this day, and none of them knew that this had happened at all. And I didn't tell them, and I kept it off of Twitter, and in fact, I've kept it off of everything until recently. And tried to be happy, mostly succeeded at being a good host. And then a dream client comes my way and asks if I want to work with them. And at this point, I'm just like, fine. I told them what was going on and kept them in the loop, and I started the project a few days later. They contacted everybody else and were sure that everybody was okay, and then I started the project. And I think if I hadn't been fully honest with them, I wouldn't have gotten that project. If I hadn't told them, this is absolutely everything that is going on. By the way, I want to start this. Here are the terms under which I'm going to start this. It's not going to be in 2 days. It's going to be in 8 days. Here's why. And took the time to actually do it. The key is to kind of manage all of those things and be extremely honest about it. If I had just been super uncomfortable about it, I don't think that this would have actually closed, and I don't think I would be in business anymore. This essentially saved my work. And it was like a 3.5-month gig, and it was a fantastic design problem. I really loved working on it. And it went until late February, I want to say. And overall, I stood up for myself, and I charged a higher rate, and I was more careful about who I took on as a client. And that was what was trying to happen over November and December when a bunch of things happened in my personal life. As a result of this gig, and then a bunch of other projects that took up my time until June, which I'm going to get into momentarily, I made more in the first 4 months of 2013 than I did in all of 2012, and this is the big one for me. This is the day when I paid off my student loans in full. The end game was not running a design business. The end game was not printing a journal. It was not making a book about interaction design. I mean, even, I'm still alive after this. There is really no end game, but this was one of the hardest things to do, just get that number down. And I'm really happy that it worked out. So more teachable stuff out of this. I ask clients about their budget up front. Every first call that I make, I ask what it is. I end the call if you can't provide a ballpark estimate. There's so many people out there that they just don't have anything together about it. And you need to have somebody that's prepared and actually professional about it. Now I bill daily or weekly, not hourly. That helps improve my, in consultant parlance, your utilization rate, basically how much time you're actually billing the person and making money doing what you're doing. And that allows me to have clients that are a lot more chill about when I actually turn out my work. I set a deadline and I meet every single deadline, but people won't hound me about how long of a lunch I took that day or when I left to go sit on the beach at Lake Michigan or whatever have you. Like, there are people who will kind of nitpick those things, and I don't want to work with them. So I also increased my rates for all future clients starting in November. And I gave existing clients due warning that I was doing that, but grandfathered them in. I firmly believe, and this is going to sound so counterintuitive, but it's so true, that higher rates translate to better and more interesting work for better people. I think you are more likely to get clients that you love if you charge them more, which is so weird. It's so weird. There's this post, if you read, Jessica Hish made a post called The Dark Art of Pricing. She wrote about it from an illustrator's perspective about how basically you can charge like X for putting like an illustration in an advertisement in like one magazine in one situation. But if you want to buy full usage rights, it's like 100X. And read that and think about that. But no matter what role you're in, you have to keep in mind that a typical employee brings in around 10 times the revenue that they themselves cost. And that goes for any, if you're W-2, if you're independent, no matter what. If you price for the value that you bring, if I say, oh, I doubled your sales overnight, oh, what does that look like? Okay, shave off a 0. That can look like a scary high number, but it's something that you can actually say, you can connect it with the impact that you have on somebody and basically stand up for yourself better. So in the first half of this year, I ended up with so much work that not only did I pay off my student loans, but I took the whole month of June off. And I worked on Cadence and Slang, my book, Distance, and my newsletter exclusively. And I redesigned all of my websites and built an e-commerce site for all my stuff. And I essentially did this because I was able to schedule myself as a client. I wrote up a statement of work for myself and listed out all of the things that I was hoping to do during the month and gave deadlines to myself, and I met them. And that allowed me to schedule my business and develop it more carefully and deliberately. And it made my side projects, like at that point, Cadence and Slang was not a side project. It was the only thing that I was working on. And that allowed me to devote enough focus and attention to do right by it. Another plus side of charging more is you can take time off really easily. And when you do that, it is easier to teach people. And when you teach people, you get more and better referrals. So this is all a virtuous cycle that has allowed me to effectively run an independent business. And if you're good enough at what you do and self-directed enough, like you have that right personality for it, it really, really works. This is also, to be clear, this is my story. But it's like one way that we work really, really well in this industry. And I've seen it happen with a lot of other people, some of whom have already been on this stage, but we each have our own narrative. A lot of you people are in full-time jobs. A lot of you might end up in full-time jobs in the future, might end up doing what you're doing. I want you to walk out of this room wondering how you can fit your career to your own life. And you don't need to do the other way around. We are again, incredibly privileged to be doing this for a living, and every project that we get to do has the ability to be its own small blessing. So that's all I got. Thank you all so much for your time. Yeah, would love to do that.